All right, welcome my friends to episode 642 of Extreme Health Radio. Thanks for joining us here. Happy Monday, wherever you are listening in the world today. I hope you're having a great Monday, great start of your week. Thanks for being here. And we're going to talk about cancer today, and we're going to share some ideas that possibly you've never heard of before in our sort of never-ending quest to get to the bottom of what we call health. And as many of you guys know, I got involved in this whole anti-cancer and natural health and alternative nutrition field because my mom's diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 1995. And watching her go through chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, and stem cell bone marrow transplants, and all that stuff, that was the impetus for what we're doing today, which is Extreme Health Radio. So this is episode 642, and if you want to grab the show notes for today's show, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/642, and we should be broadcasting live on Facebook. So I'll check that in just a second to make sure that we're on there as well. Hopefully we are, so I'll check that. So many of you guys know that a bulk of our work is about cancer, and some cancer statistics are just mind-blowing when you start looking into the cancer epidemic that is the sort of buzzword of our time and of our culture. 1 out of every 2 people these days, if you're born after 1960, are going to be diagnosed with cancer. It used to be 1 out of every 3 men, 1 out of every 3 women and 1 out of every 2 men. Cancer, there's 21,000 new diagnoses every year of cancer around the world. It's a $1.7 billion industry. And you guys remember President Nixon in 1971, I believe it was, declared the war on cancer. And we've spent almost $2 billion as a result, and cancer rates continue to rise. So I think it's fair to say that we're losing the war, and we've put the wrong people in charge, but we'll get to that later. So today we're going to talk, this is going to be really good, with Sylvie Beljanski, and she's the vice president of the Beljanski Foundation. And it pioneers off the work of her father, and we'll get into what happened to him in France as a result of his understanding and learning of what's going on with cancer. And he had some tremendous breakthroughs, and it's much like the Harry Hoxsey down in Mexico. A lot of these people are silenced, and this is why we want to give people like this a platform. And she's the author of the book Winning the War on Cancer. And let me bring her up on the show so you guys can see her. And this is going to be a fun show because we're always trying to figure out what's going on in the world of cancer. So Sylvie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be with you today, Justin.
Yeah, going and doing some research, I can't remember where I learned about your foundation, but when I'm doing some research into what your father went through as a result of the findings that he found, in reverse transcriptase and DNA and the molecules involved in the production of cancer, I just had to have you on. And it's fascinating when you look at what happened to your father and you guys continuing on his work today.
Yes, I'm very, very grateful to be here in America and be able to continue this work. Had we stayed in France, definitely this would not have been possible.
Yeah, so we won't get into too much of this, but looking at the work that he did, his own products weren't even available to him at the end of his life. Where were they? This is what happened.
No. So what happened is that the French army came on October 9, 1996. It was actually a SWAT team. The operation was called the Top Secret. And they came with machine guns, with dogs. There was an helicopter circling over the laboratory. They came with 3 trucks to take away everything. There was no warrant. There was nothing. They arrested everybody. And they hoped it was the end of it. They indicted my father, my mother, the number of doctors who had been working with them. And they thought it was over.
My goodness. And so what was your family's take on what was going on politically with regards to the work that your dad was doing? I'm sure they full well understood what was going on, right?
Yes, of course. I mean, my father was a biologist, in molecular biology, was a PhD. He was working at the Pasteur Institute. He joined the Pasteur Institute in the 50s. So he was really working with the big names of cancer research in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And he was one of the first scientists to come with a different approach of cancer. He was one of the pioneers of what is now known as environmental medicine and functional medicine. You have to understand that at the time, at the 80s, I mean, all the work that the scientific establishment was pushing was always about understanding the genetic code and looking for cancer as a result of genetic mutations, because that is where research can lead to patents and patents to money. Mm-hmm. But my father had a different take. He said, the environment can induce cancer because pollution induces a cumulative and progressive destabilization of the DNA. And then he had the idea to look for molecules that would do exactly the opposite, that would understand this destabilization, recognize it, and prevent it, or inhibit the duplication of the destabilized cells. And he found a number of natural molecules able to do that, and they are devoid of toxicity and of side effects. So because they work at the level of the DNA, they are kind of a universal answer to cancer, because we have one DNA from head to toe. So if they recognize cells which have been modified, it doesn't matter whether it is, a prostate or a breast or an ovary or a pancreas or a lung. It will recognize the modification and prevent the duplication of those destabilized cells.
So part of his work gets into this reverse transcriptase, and I guess originally what he found, right, was these environmental toxins affecting the double bond strands of the DNA, and then he went on further to figure out what could fix that from the natural realm. But what was he finding? Like, what toxins in particular did he know, and how was it? It was breaking down the double bonds of the DNA, and then what was resulting as a result of that, or happening as a result of that?
So he created a test that he called the OncoTest, and this kind of universal test also that allows to see what kind of molecule, natural or synthetic or any chemical, can induce an increased synthesis of cancer DNA, and which is a hallmark of cancer cells. Okay. And he found that there are, some, of course, chemicals like able to do that, but there are also some hormones able to do that, like testosterone at some unphysiological level can act like a carcinogen. That's why when there is an advanced prostate cancer, they are removing the testosterone. He also found that some chemotherapies at some very low dosage can act like carcinogens. That is potentially very dangerous, because that could explain why there are so many metastases, for example. He also found that there are some, some molecules that are like completely toxic, inhibit the synthesis of cancer cells, but also of healthy cells. So it's not there is no possible life, and that, is linked to some pesticides, for example, are doing that. And he found that there are some few molecules which are able to selectively inhibit the duplication of cancer cells and leave alone the synthesis of DNA of healthy cells. And that's exactly what you are looking for when you are looking for a molecule which is selectively be anti-cancer and has no toxicity.
So, in his testing, when he was looking at some of these chemicals and things that were affecting the DNA strand, was he finding or needing to expose a healthy DNA to this sort of chemical for long periods of time, or was it almost an immediate double bond breakdown there?
No, what he saw is that very often it's a cumulative long time effect. So
I see.
meaning a small dosage, they tell you, a little bit of radiation is not going to kill you, and it's so. But it is a little bit of radiation, plus a little bit more of radiation, plus a little bit more of radiation, plus exposure to this, plus exposure to that. And because we live in a sea of pollution, when we are in our 50s, 60s, I mean, we reach the threshold, and our DNA has been so stretched that at some point it breaks.
I almost wonder too if it has something to do with either the accumulation, the bioaccumulation over time, like you just said, like just accumulating these toxins for decades and decades and decades, and or if those toxins in themselves are causing the immune system to weaken. Maybe, and it's a combination of both of those things. It's causing the DNA to break.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our immune system is the first line of defense. Those toxins, and especially heavy metals, do affect us a lot. The ability to fight back. Viruses also are affecting us. I mean, there are more and more of them, are affecting our immune system in a very big way. But also, I mean, we see in animals, for example, animal studies which are radiated. I mean, there is a dose response. The more chemicals, the more and various kind of chemicals are affecting us, the more cumulative effect is reached quickly.
Man, oh man, I was just reading something recently where the average, I think there has been 60,000 new chemicals introduced into our environment since the early 1960s. And there's over, I think, 84,000 chemicals in commerce. And then you combine that with the already existing chemicals like in fire retardant beds or in our carpets and paint that we use in our house or the glyphosates in foods. I mean, all of these things are new in our environment, and I'm sure causing the high cancer rates.
And they are not even tested for carcinogenicity very often. So they are like that. We are exposed to all those things day in, day out for years, and at some point it's just too much.
Just too much. So
and now we see that babies, even babies, when they are born, we found astronomical number of chemicals in the blood curd of babies. There was a studies done a few years ago in England, and I think it has been published by the Work Environmental Group, showing that could find about 200 chemicals in average in the umbilical cord of babies.
That's crazy
So
too.
we
I've
are
heard that before.
born, yeah, and many of them carcinogens. So we were born with that, and then as soon as we start our life, we continue to accumulate all those chemicals, all this exposure on a daily basis. At some point, it's just too much.
It's so fascinating, and people wonder why we're being or why the cancer rates are going up. I was reading something again recently with, I think it was colon cancer in the in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I think colon cancer was like 1 in 34 of the types of cancer, and now I think it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 2, and these rates are just going crazy, aren't they?
And it is forecast that the number of cancer is going to double globally by 2030, and the number of deaths by cancer is going to increase by 60%. It's a combination of aging population, of increased pollution, And then the food that we are eating and drinking, those prepackaged food and sugary drinks, it's just a recipe for disaster.
So I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. President Nixon, God bless his soul, 1971, declares the war on cancer. And $1.7 billion later, there was allegedly supposed to be a cure within 10 years. So as of 1981, the cancer rates just continue to skyrocket. And, any logical person would say, we have the wrong people in charge of this war on cancer business, right? It's not working. Whatever we're doing is just not working.
No, it's not working, but I believe people are not looking at the right place. Nobody wants to look at a natural solution. Nobody wants to look at something which is not genetically engineered, because only genetically engineered drugs will lead to patents and the proper return on investment for pharmaceutical companies. So there is no really incentive to look at natural solutions. Doesn't mean that the solution for us is not there.
There was a guest on our show. He's a friend of our show. He's a former medical doctor. He was a practicing anesthesiologist there in Texas. And he was telling me off the air that he regularly attends conferences. He's probably been to some of your conferences as well, because I know you speak internationally. And he was telling me off the air that if he and his colleagues, like during these conferences, after the conference is over, they'll go up and they'll rent a hotel room and they'll just talk about all of their research and share ideas and things. And he was saying to me that, if we could get the American Medical Association, the FDA, and the government out of what we're trying to do, and if all of us could work together and do clinical trials and studies and actually practice what we know to be true to work, there would be no more cancer and there would be no more disease. But we can't do any of these things because we're all sort of hamstrung. We can't say certain things and we're just unable to practice in a free way,
Yes, it's very unfortunate, but as long as money goes around between pharmaceutical companies, insurances, and lobbying, it's going to be that way.
So going back to what your father was doing research in, so he was looking at the DNA double bond there and the reverse transcriptase enzyme, and he was finding that these chemicals were breaking that bond down. And then causing a genetic sort of breakdown. And then when that happens to the DNA, then what would happen? It would start replicating as a cancer cell? Or what was the process?
So once the DNA start to be destabilized, the hydrogen bonds, which are supposed to keep together the two strands of the DNA, are so stretched that they break. And once those hydrogen bonds break, then the two strands of the DNA constitute big loops. And inside those loops, the replication enzymes are available to the replication sites, and then it starts to duplicate much, much, much faster, which is a hallmark of cancer cells, of course, so to create those big tumors. So that's why it is important to find some compounds that will recognize those big loops and get into them and induce apoptosis, which is the technical word for death of the cells.
Okay, so the natural compounds that you guys have found cause apoptosis. They don't necessarily go in and repair that DNA so that it can replicate the way it's supposed to, right?
No. So it is, we create every day some cells that become abnormal. And when we have a strong, healthy immune system, we are able to police what is happening and to eliminate those abnormal cells. But sometimes we are just overwhelmed by the process and we cannot do it. And that's where, those cells start multiply. What is important is to eliminate them before they can multiply.
So if someone wanted to do sort of a preventative approach, would some of the natural compounds that you guys talk about, would they be something to consider as a preventative, do you think?
Yes, so my father's compounds now have been around for about 40 years. There is a non-for-profit organization in France who, for the past 20 years, has been actively supporting my father's research. And now what we are doing here through the foundation. And we have seen testimonials of at every stage of people suffering with cancer. Yes, indeed. I mean, we have seen people at a very early stage, or just even they don't have cancer, but they come from a family with a history of cancer, and they are concerned. And there are, for example, women who say, in my family, all the women have breast cancer, but I don't want to just have my 2 breasts removed like that when they are healthy. So what could I do? Mm-hmm. You have people also who have been treated for cancer, are being told that they are cancer-free, and they come to this research with questions like, I have had a round of chemotherapies. Now I'm being told I'm cancer-free. I don't want that to happen again. How can I avoid a relapse? I want to stay cancer-free. I don't want to go to chemotherapy again because that was, I don't want to put myself through that again. We have people also who have, of course, diagnosed with cancer, who are just, like, I've just been diagnosed. What are my options? And you have people who come very, very late, saying have had, metastasis. Is there still possibility to do something for me?
Mm-hmm. It's a challenging thing, because what's crazy is reading your story of your father, and what you guys were originally, or at least he was originally working on there in France, was like this is a complementary medicine to be used alongside of chemotherapy and radiation. So it wasn't even a direct threat, but what they did to him was just incredible, right?
Yes, so it was really important for my father to be realistic in his approach. And people who have cancer are going to the hospital, they are receiving chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and the outcome very often is not satisfying, because there have been studies showing that, chemotherapy sometimes doesn't, improve the duration of life for a few months. Mm-hmm. And people don't want to put themselves through, the difficulty of, the side effects of chemotherapy just for a few months. So my father always looked for something that could work in synergy with chemotherapy and radiotherapy and enhance the outcome. And he was very keen in demonstrating those synergies with chemotherapies that were, in use at the time in the 80s, 90s. So mm-hmm. One of the things that the Beljanski Foundation has been doing over the past several years is to carry on with this line of research. And we have been very lucky to work with Kansas University Medical Center. And we had studies done with some plant extracts in synergy with gemcitabine, which is the chemotherapy, the gold standard for pancreas cancer, mm-hmm. pancreatic cancer, and carboplatin also, mm-hmm. And for ovarian cancer. And they were able to confirm that indeed there is a very nice synergy of action. And sometimes the tumors in mice studies at least, were inhibited by 97%. without side effects, without added toxicity. The metastases were also reduced or completely inhibited. And in the case of ovarian cancer, the acids, which are blood cancer cells that bloat the abdomen and are making the prognosis very poor, were also inhibited. So very nice results, and all those studies are being published in peer-reviewed papers. They are published, available on PubMed, and also, of course, on the website of the Beljanski Foundation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are available on beljanski.org, those studies?
Absolutely. We want everybody to be able to download and read by themselves, and print and bring that to their doctor and discuss of their treatment options with their doctor. The Beljanski Foundation, absolutely, its mission is to not only to carry on with the research, but also to educate people about what is available out there, and people can, have an educated discussion with our doctors.
So, I mean, this is the challenge, and this is where the rub comes in for a lot of cancer patients, is that when they go to talk to their doctor, and even if they were to bring some printed up studies, the doctors are just very fearful of looking at something, even though there's a study about it, that doesn't necessarily use the standard of care that they're supposed to be giving to the patient. And this is where the real problem comes in, because my mom recently had this happen with some extra cells that they thought were in her breast. They thought they were cancer cells. And we did a consultation with one of our former guests who works with women to do an integrative approach with chemotherapy and some natural products. And the doctor told my mom, she said, you have 3 different ways you can go about doing this. You could either or 2 different ways. You can either tell your oncologist what you're going to do, or you could just not tell them and do a hybrid approach. So she told the oncologist, and the oncologist said that anything else that you take is going to hamper the chemotherapy's beneficial effects of killing the cells. And so this is what they do. And are you seeing any difference in turnarounds with oncologists who maybe are closed-minded to this when presented with a study, and then they change their mind? Because that's where we need to go, is making sure these oncologists are open-minded enough to work this way.
So when there is a study showing the synergy, and documenting the synergy of action, and the doctor is refusing to look into it and just offering a blanket rejection, saying, no, you don't want to take anything will interfere. Well, ask for the study showing that there will be an interference with that specific compound. You don't have, it's a discussion. You are, if he says, everything will interfere, okay, show me the data. Doctor, please. You don't have to, to cave in to anything which is just, an assertion, an opinion.
Now, I'm curious with your studies and these peer-reviewed studies that you have on your website, are like, what kinds of cancer can someone get these studies for? Are there multiple types?
So as I said, the interesting thing about my father's compounds is that they work at the level of the DNA, so they are not gender or organ specific. Now, the Beljanski Foundation cannot do research on every organ to validate that scientific new way to approach cancer. But what we have done, we have been able to work on prostate cancer with Columbia University. We have worked on ovarian and pancreatic cancer with Kansas University Medical Center. So we like doing that way. We have shown it was not gender or organ specific. We have also been working on different stage of cancer. And we have shown in a study which was conducted with Nanjing University in China, that it was working on advanced prostate cancer cells which do not respond anymore to hormonal treatment. And we have done with Kansas University Medical Center some research showing that it was working also on cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells are those cells which are not killed by chemotherapy. They resist, and they have the ability to travel and to recreate another tumor somewhere else. So as long as we have not addressed the problem of cancer stem cells, chances are that we are going to maybe develop a relapse of cancer. So it's very important to address that. Chemotherapy is not doing that as of today.
So someone recently mentioned this, and it was a cool little analogy, I thought. And it really, before this, I had never heard of the cancer stem cell versus the tumor cell. So he was talking about the cancer stem cell versus the cancer tumor cell. And he was kind of making the analogy that it was like similar to a fight outside of a bar. You know, there's one or two guys that are fighting, and then there's a crowd around watching, right? And looking from above, you think all the people are part of the problem, but really it's just two guys. And what he was saying was this chemotherapy, although it can shrink the actual tumor size, he was saying the exact same thing you're saying is it doesn't fix the two guys that were fighting. It doesn't fix the actual stem cell. And what he was saying was the chemotherapy and radiation actually anger and make the stem cells even more virulent and more angry. And that's why they do what you just said, which was like metastasize, right? And spread throughout the body. And I found that to be very interesting that chemotherapy just shrinks tumor size. Doesn't really fix the stem cell, does it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the doctor is saying chemotherapy is working, it's your tumor is shrinking, but you are shrinking actually the less aggressive, and you leave the entire place to the most aggressive ones.
Oh man. So part of what we do on our show is give people a platform like you to be able to share with our audience things that you're not going to hear on the news. But I was looking at one of your media videos, and there was an actual spot of you guys on, I think, a New York news center at the Rockefeller Center, like NBC or CBS or something, and I was shocked.
Yes. A few years ago, we were very lucky. We were invited at MSBC to present our results on ovarian. It was ovarian cancer month, and just at the right time, the paper about Pao Pereira and Revolvia vomitoria and their benefits for ovarian cancer, the research done at Kansas University Medical Center was published. So that just came out at the right moment, and we were invited to present this data.
That's so cool. That's so cool. We are with Sylvie Beljanski, and her website is beljanski.org, and we'll be right back after this break. And if you guys have any questions about her foundation's treatment and whether or not you can work with them or how all of that stuff works, we'll take those after the break. And if you're on Skype and you want to ask a question, this would be a great time to do that. Our handle on Skype is Extreme Health Radio, Extreme Health Radio, all one word, and you guys can ask a question on there. And then when we come back from the chat room, or from the break, I should say, I'll take some questions from the chat room, and we'll kind of just bounce around a little bit and talk about her work and things like that you have going on. So we'll be right back right after this break.
You're listening to Extreme Health Radio, and I hope you're enjoying this show. Please share it with your friends by tagging at Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. Stay tuned for new shows weekly.
So as long as they allow us to have a platform, we are going to be utilizing the platform to get the word out to as many people as we possibly can. So that's why we're trying to reach more people on Extreme Health Radio on Instagram, on Facebook. That's why we're broadcasting live on Facebook today, because, I was just thinking about this last night. As long as we have a platform, we might as well utilize it to the best of our ability and get the word out so that more people know about options like this. So follow us on our little Extreme Health Radio Instagram. That would be great. And make sure to keep up to date with what we're doing. And one of the things I wanted to tell you guys about was this relaxed far infrared sauna. And we're talking about toxins and environmental chemicals and poisons. And sweating, sauna therapy has been utilized for thousands of years. And what it does is it essentially uses far infrared heat. It's actually a light that bounces around on the inside of this sauna that we use. In fact, I just used mine last night. And what it does is it oscillates, these light frequencies oscillate the fat cells, the lipid cells of your body. And this is where many of our chemicals and toxins, environmental poisons, along with the lymphatic system, sort of store up. And what this does is it basically oscillates those lipid fat cells and shakes loose those environmental chemicals. And we had a really cool guy, Dr. Let's see, what was his name? Dr. Robert Rowan was on the show, and listen to what he had to say about sauna therapy.
It's one of the biggest. The other issue is the chemicals in the environment. And to get rid of chemicals in the environment, probably the most cost-effective method is to sweat them out. And far-infrared saunas is going to help sweat them out.
Uh-huh.
I mean, look at the breast. What is the breast? It's 90% fat. It's only 10% mammary tissue.
Mm-hmm.
So the fat of the breast is going to store all these poisons, which act as estrogens, and hold it right up against sensitive mammary tissue.
And so these toxins get stored in the fat cells, and you can sweat these things out.
It's been shown that when you sweat in like far-infrared saunas, you actually can begin downloading toxins from your body.
Yeah, guys. So, sauna therapy, like I was just mentioning, is so huge. It's so huge, and it should be a part of everyone's sort of self-care, I think, with see, our environment is changing. We didn't even talk about EMF or non-native EMF in today's show yet, but our environment is rapidly changing, and it's so important to have something that you do at least 3 or 4 times a week that helps to get rid of these toxins out of your body, because we're just bioaccumulating these things every single day. And sauna therapy is great. What I love about this particular sauna, we have other saunas in our store, biocharge.me, as well, that we highly recommend and make available to you. But what I love about this one is that it's essentially your head sticks out of it. It's portable, so you don't have to knock any walls down. You don't have to do any complicated construction to set it up. You can loan it to a friend. You can set it up and break it down within a couple minutes. But it uses far infrared light, and your head sticks out of it. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's better to not heat the head. I don't know why, but I just like it better for that reason. So what I do is I listen to documentaries or watch documentaries on Netflix or on Amazon or YouTube, and I just have like a little spa day, and I sit in there by myself and just sweat. You start sweating within minutes, and this is just a tremendous way to bring some healing technology into your life. So if you guys are interested in the Momentum 98 Relax Far Infrared Sauna, go to biocharge.me. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, it'll be available on biocharge.me. If you're watching on YouTube, there should be a description down below for this particular sauna, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. So one of the things I love to do as well, and this is what I did last night actually, stayed up a little bit too late doing this, but I did a rebounder session. In fact, I did it in front of our Juve red light therapy, but I did a rebounder to stimulate my lymphatic system. And then I jumped in the sauna and listened to what Dr. Judy Mikovits talked about rebounding in particular.
And let's think about the simplest thing. I used to do one of those rebounders for exercise back in the 80s and things like that. And it's a wonderful way to move your lymphatics, because a lot of these toxins simply clog up the highways. Think about LA. That's why I take the train, because you can't get there from here. There's so much road construction, narrowing down to 3 lanes here and there. That blocks it all up. That's with the lymphatics. That's with the blood. That's why we see all this swelling and inflammation. And then all of these toxins are talking to the cells that say, I have to go repair. And overdoing repair causes cancers, because you need to turn that off.
So when I first learned about rebounding, it was really funny because I thought it was like a 1970s kind of put on your leg warmers, cheesy workout that women would do. But when I started learning about how it affects not just circulation, microcirculation, but how it affects bone density and in particular your immune system, but most specifically how it affects your lymphatic system. And when I started to understand like how important your lymph system is, it really opened my eyes to maybe I should start doing this because I like to surf, I like to work out, I like to lift weights, I like to go hiking. I'm not really into like these cheesy exercises, but when I started understanding that you actually have more lymphatic fluid in your body than you do blood, and lymphatic cancers, for example, are just skyrocketing right now. Whenever you go to the doctor, they always check your neck, your groin, your armpits, your throat, to see if you have any swollen lymph nodes. And your lymphatic system is your body's defense. It's where chemicals store. And so they store there and they store in the fat and just about everywhere in the body. And so what you can do is really cool. You can jump up and down on a rebounder for 10 to 15 minutes and then get in the sauna and sweat all of that stuff out because you have these millions of one-way valves in your lymphatic system. And those things don't have a pump. It's not like your heart. Your heart has is a way of pumping blood through your body, but the lymph system doesn't have a way of doing that. And so it has to be manually stimulated. And so these one-way valves will actually open and close using this G-force and gravity that's like 8 times the amount that you weigh at the bottom of the bounce. And then it opens those up and flushes those out when you jump up in the air. And it gets rid of the lymphatic toxins that are stored there and puts them into the serum of your blood, and then that way you can sweat this stuff out. And so it's a really good 1-2 combo to jump up and down on a rebounder and then get in the sauna. The one that we recommend is the Bellicon. This is the one that I jump on every day. I do it outside. What's great is that you can buy different sizes. There's little attachments if you're worried about balance. You can put them in a bunch of different colors. I have the ones with the foldable legs, so you can fold it and store it underneath your bed. But the best part about it is that it has these little tiny ropes, these flexi bungee ropes, instead of these loud springs that break. And so it's silent. So you could do it in the same room with your kids sleeping or your husband. You could do it at night and no one will hear you. And it's just such a great exercise to do on a regular basis. So I do this for about 20, 30 minutes every day, and then I jump in the sauna, and it's a really great 1-2 combo to help on a daily basis deal with these toxicities that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So if you guys are interested, if you're watching on Facebook or anywhere else, just go to biocharge.me or extremhealthradio.com/642, I believe today's show is. You'll find a link to it there, or biocharge.me. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a link down below for this as well. So go check out the sauna and the rebounder. I think you guys are going to love these two things to bring into your home and start detoxing on a regular basis.
This is Extreme Health Radio, where we're 100% listener supported. Make sure to join the Extreme Health Academy with thousands of other listeners and get real solutions for your health challenges.
So if you're looking to take your health even further, come join us in the Extreme Health Academy. You get a free 14-day trial if you guys want to come and join us and be a part of the community there. It's always a lot of fun, and we really love connecting with all of our listeners inside the Extreme Health Academy. So there's a coupon code of EHR14 that you guys can join up and try it out for 2 weeks, make some friends, get access to all of our courses, and learn more in there. And so let me bring Sylvia back up on the show. And so, okay, here we go. So turn her audio up. So Sylvie, don't you think it is so important for people to have some sort of like way of detoxifying these heavy metals and these chemicals? I mean, it's like I have to do this stuff every day. It's so important.
Absolutely. I mean, there are more and more chemicals, more than we can handle. So we have to find ways to detoxify. Our body naturally detoxifies, but there is so much chemicals now that it's really a necessity to find ways to eliminate sweat. Absolutely. when we are mentioning sweat, this is a very important one. I mean, fasting also is something that people are looking into also to help the body eliminate. There are other ways. I mean, and you have also sometimes some extreme contamination with some specific heavy metals. I was myself contaminated once with arsenic, and I had to go through chelation. There was no other way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe also that there are some supplements like chlorella and ketosine, and a mix of different substances like that is actually best to help eliminate on a regular basis the heavy metals. It's one of the big contamination now, the bigger and bigger problem, heavy metals.
What were those supplements you just mentioned?
Like chlorella and ketosine, for example, are a good way to help support, the liver, hyaluronic acid, some chitogic mushroom, and chlorella, and ketosine are a good mix, for example, to help fix the heavy metals, or they stimulate the liver to get them out of the liver, fix them, and then eliminate them. Elimination process is really important because otherwise you recycle endlessly those heavy metals, and they make you even more tired.
Mm-hmm. I hear that. If you guys have any questions in the chat room on YouTube, Extreme Health Radio, make sure to type them in all caps, and we'll kind of bounce around a little bit. But I'm curious, Sylvie, before the break, we were talking about a patient's relationship to their doctor and their oncologist, who may or may not be aware of these studies that you were talking about. And I'm curious, with the people that you've had a lot of success with in the testimonials there on your website, were they people that worked in conjunction and did a hybrid approach with chemo and radiation, or are these kind of people that specifically worked with the Beljanski protocols by themselves?
Well, we have seen everything. I mean, we have seen people saying, I don't want to put anything poisonous in my body. And some people who say, I have cancer, I want to put all the chances on my side, give me everything. And you have to respect both approaches, because there is no wrong approach to treat your own body. You have to do what you are comfortable with. If you fight your intuition, that's not the way to recovery. You have to absolutely do your research and then go with what you feel good about. We have seen, for the most famous example that my father had to deal with, of course, was the former president of the French Republic, François Mitterrand. He was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer at the middle of his second term. The terms were 7 years at the time. When it was finally became official that the president was sick with cancer, he was already dying, basically, with cancer. So they called the surgeon, and the surgeon said that the cancer has spread everywhere, and announced that the president would not finish his second term, that the country should prepare for early elections. Mm-hmm. And they prescribed morphine, basically, and that was it. But Mitterrand had a mistress. This is a French story. And the mistress knew about a good doctor who had good results on prostate cancer by using my father's approach. And that's how Mitterrand started to take the Beljanski products. As we know, he was able to finish his second term and survive even several months after his second term. And he decided that about a year later that he had enough and he had achieved everything he wanted, and he decided to stop. But we were, again, against all odds, able to provide him a decent quality of life, was able to work, to function as a president, for as long as he really wanted to follow that route.
That's interesting.
I do believe, yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm going through your website for those that are listening on audio, and it's interesting because there's a tab there at the top that says survivor stories, and so I'm going through it, and there's breast cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, cancer in animals, brain cancer, AIDS, other cases. And what's interesting about, for specifically, what is it, pancreatic cancer? That one seems to be extremely virulent, doesn't it?
Yes, and it looks like there are more and more of those cancers. I don't know if it is something that is, added to the food or some pesticides, which is specifically bad for pancreatic health, but it looks like there are more and more of those, unfortunately.
Yeah, it seems like it's on the rise, and it's so interesting too. So I'm sure you have other cases of survivor stories as well, right? Other types of cancers.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not everybody gives a testimonial, but unfortunately. But yes, and what we have been doing also, we have been working with a laboratory called RGCC. And this laboratory works with doctors, actually, doctors who are willing to see what kind of compound are going to be specifically helpful for their patients, and being able to induce apoptosis of his or her specific cancer cells. Mm-hmm. So here how it works. The doctor draws some blood and sends it to the laboratory, who has patented a membrane. So the blood goes through the membrane, and what is separated are just the cancer cells. And then they test those cancer cells against a long list of drugs and supplements and foods to see what actually will be able to destroy those cancer cells. What can, so that's in order to avoid the famous horrible sentence, the treatment failed. You don't. You want to make sure like that before you commit to a treatment, that your cells are sensitive to that compound. And again and again, the plant extracts the foundation has been working with are shown to be active against a lot of different kind of cancer cells of different people.
That's so interesting. So is that similar to the Greek GRCC test, which actually tests
yes,
for the same
exactly.
thing you're talking about? Is that it?
Yes, RGCC. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They are not just in Greece. I mean, their headquarters is in Greece, but they are available also in the States, in several states.
So is it so if my understanding is correct on that, and I may be wrong about this, but it actually will test natural compounds as well as pharmaceuticals and chemotherapy, radiation, to find out exactly what you just said. If the cancer cells themselves are going to react to a particular substance. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They are a little bit reluctant at the beginning to take natural compounds, because they say, natural compounds sometimes the dosage is not consistent and everything. But when they understood that what we are doing is we are very, very keen on quality control, and there is a consistency of in the dosage, then they added what we are doing to their list of products they are looking into.
That's so interesting. So if someone wants to get that test, could they do it through you? Last I checked, it was really expensive.
No, you have to do that through your doctor. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
The doctor is the one who draws the blood and sends it to the laboratory.
So that would be called an RGCC test, is that right?
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. My gosh, that would be a good test to know if you're going to take a certain chemo and it doesn't work. You don't want to do that, right? It's like
absolutely. Especially when there is, a way to know far in advance. So the test may be a little bit expensive, but I think it's well worth it, because you don't want to ruin your health by taking the wrong chemo.
Oh my gosh, right? And then do that for however long and have it not work, and then you got to try, another chemo, and then it just continues the breakdown process.
Exactly.
So there's a good question here from a regular listener, Pirate Pete, and he was talking about leukemia and blood cancers, and I think he was saying that a relative of his has a blood cancer. What would you recommend for someone like him?
Look, I am not a doctor, and I cannot make like that.
That's right. That's right.
Recommendation. I would say there has been also, a number of studies done, and they go back to on blood cancer. They go back to the time of my father. There are also support and benefits that can be given, but this is not something that I can discuss here individually. What we can do, if you reach out to the foundation can try to put you in contact with a health professional who will then provide with a personalized care that is appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Let's take another one here. Chris wants to know what supplements you were talking about. And so this is kind of like what we talked about a little bit before we went on the air, because there's a really delicate dance when it gets into supplements. And obviously we can't say that these supplements do anything. It's just like the state of the world that we're in today. We can't say these things because it would get people in trouble. But do you want me to share with Chris after some of the resources that are on your site, or do you want to answer that question?
The plant extracts we have been working on with the Beljanski Foundation are Pao Pereira and Revolvia vomitoria. Those two plant extracts have now been extensively researched by Columbia University and by Kansas University Medical Centers on different kind of cancer cells. Those studies are available on the website of the foundation. And of course, what you want to look at, if you are interested in those plant extracts, is to look for dietary supplements that do contain those herbs. There is, on the Beljanski Foundation website, there is also a study making a comparison of how much flavoperidine is available on different brands, which make Pao Pereira available. And so you can go there, look at that, and see what is the best product for you.
This one comes from Jennifer. It's an email that came in early, and basically, to sum it up, is there any are there any conflicts? Because you know how like oncologists will say, don't take anything natural because it conflicts with our chemotherapy. Are there any conflicts with the supplements or the plant extracts you work with and other natural-based supplements or plant extracts? Do you know?
Well, other natural-based plant extracts, is so large, so vague. You are calling here Mother Nature. There is no way we can do, screening for everything. What we have observed is that silica prevents good absorption of Pao Pereira, and then hormonal therapy sometimes prevents the full benefit of Revolvia vomitoria. And of course, there are some occasional allergies to some plant extracts that do happen. It's very rare, but that do happen from time to time.
Now, are the majority of the plant extracts that you guys are researching and using, is it mainly two, or are there multiple ones?
No, there are. My father worked also on an extract of golden leaf of Ginkgo biloba. And this extract is very interesting because it seems to help regulate the enzymes of the liver when they go havoc because of cancer process. Mm-hmm. And it also helps to repair the breakage of the chromosomes due to radiation and help prevent fibrosis, which can be induced as a side effects of radiotherapy. So that's a very interesting product. And my father also perfected RNA fragments, which come from a bacteria and help maintain a healthy level of white blood cells and platelets. And there was a clinical trial which was conducted at Cancer Treatment Centers of America a few years ago with those little RNA fragments, and showing that, without side effects, without toxicity, the people who were in the clinical trial were using those little RNA fragments. Nobody had thrombocytopenia, and nobody had to stop their chemotherapy because of loss of platelets. So that was a very good clinical trial, and we were very happy with the results and the subsequent publication.
So on your website, it says monographs. What is that?
So the monographs is if you want to learn more about those plant extracts, how they were discovered, what is the story behind them, because you will find, for example, that Paupera was well documented for several centuries, and there is a traditional use in South America, which is was not, of course, about cancer, but was about other disease, and the safety and the long-term use has been very well documented.
Yeah, I'm looking at one
and
here.
Same thing,
oh, sorry, I'm looking at one here. The Revolvia.
The Revolvia.
Revolvia.
Revolvia. So the Revolvia has been traditionally used in Ayurvedic medicine to help relieve stress, for example. What my father did, he removed the reserpine, which is a main alkaloid of the Revolvia extracts. So it's completely different from all other known Revolvia extract. And because it doesn't contain any reserpine, it doesn't have the toxicity and the side effect of regular Revolvia extract. And this is this Revolvia extract devoid of reserpine that has been used at Kansas University Medical Center to study the synergy of action with carboplatin and gemcitabine.
Now I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this question because I want to make sure that I do it in a way that's not incriminating for either one of us. But let me think about this. So if someone were, let me just try to figure out how to ask this. Is it possible, or this might be a better way of asking it. I'm sure you have patients that have been on the full spectrum of the traditional cancer treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, all that. Is it so? Now I've learned that you can take some of the plant extracts that you guys have mentioned as a preventative. So that would be something that all listeners should consider doing. But if you are currently undergoing or considering any kind of treatment, you could start on some of these plant extracts at any part of your course, your cancer healing journey. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Those plant extracts have no toxicity, no known side effects. They are just supplements that can be added to your nutritional regimen at any stage.
So you guys are continuing to do research, is that right, on different cancer cells and things?
Absolutely. We have an upcoming project at the Beljanski Foundation, which is on melanoma, and we have an upcoming fundraising to help fund this research. So we are very excited about that. And we have some preliminary results which are very, very encouraging. So we are looking to do more.
Now, I'm curious from not really a business perspective, but more of maybe a political perspective or a cultural perspective when it comes to pharmaceutical companies and where we lie in today's culture and your foundation. how are you guys managing to still stay here in America and do what you're doing, but also not be it too much on the radar? I imagine it's a really difficult dance for you guys.
Well, I love to speak about the research on behalf of the foundation. I have written a book, which is Winning the War on Cancer, the Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure, which says everything about the research. And I do not promote actively any brand. That people, are able to do their own research and look. I'm saying, look with what kind of product the research has been done. Don't expect that some brand which has been done no research will deliver the same products that a brand which does the research. But people have to do that by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember watching a documentary. It was really interesting there's one called Run from the Cure, which is about Rick Simpson and the cannabis. But then there was another one, I forget what it was called. It was something about the Harry Hoxsey and what they did with the Hoxsey formula down in Mexico in the early 1900s when the AMA started becoming in power, I guess you would say. Through the Flexner report and all of that. And what they did to him was just incredible in terms of, ostracizing him and getting rid of him essentially from the United States. And so far, you guys aren't dealing with any of that, right? You're seem to be.
No, it's my father had plenty to deal with that in France. We took the case against the French government, the European Court of Human Rights, Beljanski against France. We won an unanimous decision, and I have to say that since that. Maybe thanks to that, we have not had problems anywhere. Mm-hmm. But we do respect. We fully do respect the law. I never promote actively any product.
Now, do we know how the plant extracts are affecting, or I guess a better question would be, do we know, because our environment is changing so much, especially with non-native EMF and blue light, people looking at screens and breaking our mitochondria and dirty electricity and 5G and all these types of things. Are you noticing any difference with maybe a higher case of metastasis or virulency of cancer cells not responding as well to the plant extracts because of environmental changes? Or are you guys still seeing a really great success across the board?
So what I like to say is that those compounds, those extracts can give you time. Now, what are you doing with this time? Are you learning what makes you sick in the beginning? Are you solving the conflicts in your life? Are you getting clarity? Are you starting to eat healthy? Or just, you just don't change anything? And there are some people who don't want to change anything. I've had some people very becoming extremely snapping at me when I was telling them, your Diet Coke is full of chemicals and sugar and chemicals that replace sugar. It's not any better than and they were really snapping at me like, just don't tell me what to drink. I said, okay, I'm not telling you anything, but don't expect to, if you don't learn anything from the disease, if you don't look at the disease as a great opportunity to turn your life around and avoid conflicts and go to a much place of peace and understanding of the meaning of life, then you are not going to solve the disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so interesting. I'm going to bring up a little screenshot that I think was really interesting so people can understand. And I'm sure it's a lot more I guess, biologically complex than this, but let me bring this up on the page for people that are watching on Facebook and YouTube with regards to this DNA hydrogen bond. And if you look here in the center, this is a picture of a DNA strand, double bond here, and it looks here, these are intact hydrogen bonds, and then at some point in the middle, they're broken. And so these plant extracts will help not repair the bonds, but actually induce what you call apoptosis to essentially make sure that these things don't completely start replicating and creating cancer cells. Is that kind of a bird's eye approach of what's going on?
Exactly. You want to eliminate the cells whose DNA like that is broken and allows the duplication enzymes to have access to duplication sites, because those cells are those which replicate abnormally fast. So you want a compound that will, like a little radar, will know exactly where to go and will kill basically those cells.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm going to take a couple questions from the chat room, but before that, we want to make sure that we're not taking too much of your time. Really quickly, as an end user listener, maybe someone passed this podcast on to us, someone who's been diagnosed recently, and they're wondering what to do. Can they contact your foundation to figure out what steps to do next? Yeah?
Absolutely. Beljanski.org. Don't hesitate to contact us, and there is a number of volunteers which are here on a daily basis and will do their best to answer your questions, and if it is a medical question, to put you in contact with a health professional.
That's cool. And you have people around the world, practitioners around the world?
Oh, yeah. We are now in contact with health professionals in 26 countries.
So what would have happened if someone called up and they wanted to figure out how to work with your products, or not your products, but these plant extracts that are recommended? How does that whole process work?
So we have a webinar which is CME accredited for health professionals, 1 hour credit. Mm-hmm. So that's a great resource. We also have another live webinar where we explain to health professionals the research and answer all the questions that we can. And then we, either myself or Dr. John Hall, we are often invited to speak at a number of lectures, and we present this research to either researchers or health professionals who are interested.
Mm-hmm. There's a good I was just reading one of the questions, or not a question, it's more a comment in the chat room from Shill and Killery, and it says, it's really a shame that Sylvie and Justin and others cannot speak freely without repercussions. The Beljanski remedies sound impressive from the testimonials on the website. It's so hard, isn't it, to speak freely,
Look, I that's why I wrote the book, to have, give a lot of information, explain the research. And it's a book that reads easily. It's my own story, how I started. I came here as in the US as a young lawyer. I was completely shocked by what happened to my father in France. And I decided to devote the rest of my life understanding what he was doing and salvaging whatever could be salvaged of this research. I've been blessed to be here and to be able to establish those partnerships with those academic institutions that have gone beyond what my father had been able to demonstrate and publish about. I think we have an even better understanding now that what we had 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we have now the foundation as a board who is doing an extremely good job at finding new partnerships and helping to fund a new line of research. So it's very, very exciting. And I love it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Helping people overcome one of the most deadly and dreaded diseases in our time, really. What other forms of research and what do you have coming up? Because I know you guys are always pushing the frontier and trying to learn more. What do you have coming up in the future?
Well, my father, I discovered, I keep discovering, things in my father's papers. There are some papers that, come up at some point that, we did not even notice or they were. 2 years ago, I discovered that my father has been working on teas and that all green teas are not created equal. It seems like all green teas have, to some extent, we know that they have antioxidant benefits, but they also seem to have some anti-cancer effects, but they are not all equal, and some are much more powerful than others. So we have identified a number of green teas based on some of my father's product, a paper and indication, and we are testing now those teas against various line of cancer cells, and this line of research is extremely promising.
It must be really cool to be doing what you guys are doing, because you effectively are doing things that the medical industry is not doing, and that's helping so many people. Gosh, it just must feel good to be doing something great with your life and helping people in this way. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I am extremely grateful.
That's so
extremely
cool.
Grateful.
That's so cool. Well, I know that mainstream media, maybe you'd be lucky to get on mainstream media, and you have before, and that's always a great thing. But right now we have podcasts like this, and I know you do a number of these, shows, and I think it's really great for all of us to sort of band together and give people like you guys who are on the frontier of this kind of research a platform to be able to let people know about options they probably have never heard before. So I'm grateful to you and your work.
Well, thank you. I am grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to speak about this research. I mean, if we do not have the opportunity to speak about it, nobody will ever know about it, and then what's the point?
So if you guys are watching or listening, her book is called Winning the War on Cancer. It's available on Amazon or on Beljanski.org, and I'll put a link to that at extremehealthradio.com/642. That's the number for today's show. And Sylvie, thank you so much for your work and carrying on the work of your father and all this new research. Thank you for doing this for humanity. I really appreciate this.
Well, thank you, Justin, and thank you to Extreme Health Radio.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I will be in contact with your team, and I'll let you know about the link to this video and all that, and you can share it however you like. But thank you again for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Awesome. Thanks, Sylvie. Bye-bye. Well, there you go, my friends. I hope you enjoyed that show. Interesting stuff, right, with Sylvie Beljanski. Interesting stuff. I want to share with you one of the websites that she mentions. I didn't even want to bring it up on the screen, even though they link to it from their main Beljanski website. You guys probably have a lot of questions about the particular products. I'm going to share that after the break, but it's just so crazy. It's just, you can't say anything. You can't. In today's culture, I mean, I guess you can, but man, if you really say what you want to say out there, I'm just noticing that they're going to shut you down really quick. So in any event, I've got lots more to share and to say. So after the break, we'll be right back.
We hope you're enjoying this episode. Thanks for being on this health journey with us, and don't forget to check out biochargeme.com for hundreds of health products to build a better you.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for checking out biocharge.me, and that is our website of products that we have to support the work that we do. And speaking of cancer and these types of things, specifically in animals, like if you have an animal, do you guys have dogs? I'm sure you do. Everyone has dogs, right? you love your dogs and you want your dog to live a long time. And one of the causes of diseases in animals is the food that we're feeding them. And this processed canned stuff, leaching heavy metals and chemicals from the can, not counting the imbalance of nutrients in dog food, and the fact that it is extruded from roadkill and all kinds of crazy things that are in conventional dog foods. This is why we feed our dogs the BARF. It sounds gross, right? BARF, B-A-R-F, but I think it stands for biologically appropriate raw food. And what's cool about the BARF diet is that it contains muscle meat, it contains the bone, and the organ meats, which is what a dog would eat in the wild if they caught a prey. They wouldn't just eat specifically muscle meat or pizza or carbohydrates, right? They would eat the entire animal. So here's what our good friend Robert Mueller has to say about the BARF diet. Did you know that conventional dog food contains antibiotics, herbicides, pesticides, ground up carcasses from roadkill subjected to high heat processing, artificial colors, chemical preservatives, way too many carbohydrates, genetically modified corn syrups, indigestible grains, and a lack of moisture content in the dry kibble? Obviously, this can lead to health conditions like diabetes, itchy skin, teeth and gum problems, liver damage, obesity, behavioral issues, pancreatic problems, and even cancer. That's why we recommend the BARF diet, which is the biologically appropriate raw food diet from BARF World. Their unprocessed raw meats contain bone, organ meats, vitamins, and minerals that are loaded with enzymes. BARF World founder Robert Mueller explains more.
Sure, I don't have to convince you on the damage that's caused by high heat to food. So as a result, we see many skin disorders, a lot of arthritis, obesity, heart disease, cancers. I mean, it's just rampant. The vet clinics are just full of these conditions. And basically a large percentage of the commercial pet food that's made up of the human industry leftovers. And the pet food industry makes use of this waste product. And in addition to that, we are subjected to the products coming out of the rendering plants. Garbage in, garbage out. If you feed garbage to your dog, you're going to end up with garbage health. And if you put the right gas in, your engine runs smoother and lasts longer. So if you put the right fuel in the tank, you're going to get the right output. Garbage in, garbage out.
We've seen an immense difference with our dog Maggie being on this diet. Give your dog the gift of health today by going to extremehealthradio.com/barf or go to our store. That's extremehealthradio.com/barf to learn even more.
Ah, poor Maggie. We don't have Maggie anymore. She was our little wiener dog that we used to have, but we did feed her the BARF World. Now we feed Charlie and Coco, our little pups. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see Charlie and Coco quite often. But this is what we feed them, and they love it. And it feels good to feed your dog food that they would naturally eat in the wild. And so I really recommend this. Try it out. Get some for your dog and see how they like it. Just ease them into it if they've been eating a conventional diet of kibble. Just sort of ease them into it. And I think that they eventually will love this food. Our dogs, we didn't even need to ease them into it. They just ate it right away, and they just loved it. So check out the BARF World Raw Dog Food. And here's something that I haven't really talked about in a long time, and this is the Qigong Course. Do you guys practice any kind of moving meditation? Many of you guys probably understand the benefits of just regular sitting meditation, but a moving meditation, there's just something different about it. There's something different in the way that you can imagine the energy moving through your body, and there's just something completely different about doing a moving meditation versus a sitting meditation. And listen to what one of our former guests, Dr. Christopher Shade, said about Qigong.
People come to me and they're really sick and they got this blown out neurological system and all this toxicity, and I tell them, you need to do Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do these things that settle down and restore your neurology, because it puts together all the parts. It puts you back into that state where you can start to detoxify. And so I highly, highly recommend all that.
Yeah, so I was reading something recently that was saying that there's more stress in today's modern world in one day than our ancestors had in an entire lifetime. Now, I don't know if that's possible to even quantify, but stress is the number one cause of disease, and it's really important that we learn strategies to mitigate stress. And what's cool about Qigong, this particular course, is that all it takes is 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening, and it's just an awesome course, and I cannot recommend it enough. Here's what Kit Campbell had to say about it too.
Qigong is amazing. And the reason that I believe it to be amazing is everything here is energy. That is a scientific fact, if there ever is one. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually drawing energy into your body. Your intention, whatever your intention is behind any action, will determine the level of energy, type of energy that you absorb into your body. So your intention behind is very important, just like thought. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually bringing energy in and you're bringing out the stuff that might be a bit stale. With Tai Chi, it's totally different. The energy runs underneath the skin because it's more of a martial. This is the Chinese understanding, by the way. It's more of a martial art. So Qigong is very, very good for bringing that energy into the body, and just fantastic.
Yeah, Qigong is awesome, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's really great to sort of ground your energy that you have, and then build your energy in the morning when you do your practice for 10 minutes in the morning. And if you really want to ramp it up, you can actually do it at the sunrise and at the sunset. But if you do it with the sunrise, you're grounding to the earth. It's just an awesome way to start your day, and this is why it's a longevity exercise. There's reasons why the Chinese culture has been doing Qigong for thousands of years, and I'm really happy to be offering this because it's kind of a unique and different product in the sense that it's a moving meditation. It's not necessarily a supplement or anything like that, but this is an awesome course that I would really recommend. So if you have 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening as a self-care sort of discipline, this would be a great course that you should buy, and they'll walk you through all the different exercises you can do. It's really cool. So I just really recommend the Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. It's something to definitely start doing as part of your daily self-care routines. And as long as we have a platform, we're going to be on here doing shows on Extreme Health Radio, on YouTube, on Facebook. But the best way to stay up to date with us is to join our newsletter. That way you get access to our shows if they kick us off these platforms. So we'll be right back, and I got a couple things to share with you after we hang out for the show.
Extreme Health Radio is your #1 resource for cutting-edge biohacks, news, and information about how to upgrade every area of your health. Subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.
Yeah, if you want to join our newsletter, there's places to do that all over extremehealthradio.com, and that way you won't miss any of the shows that we do on a weekly basis every Monday and Friday, live on YouTube and now on Facebook. That way you'll be up to date with all of our past shows, all of our upcoming shows. If there's Black Friday deals, we'll let you know about that. Hopefully we can put together a page where if you want to support our work, you can go through our store. We'll be sending you some info about that. We send out emails on Mondays and Thursdays. Sometimes an additional one if there's some event coming up, but usually just Monday and Thursday mornings, and that way you can get access to all of our older content. So it's really cool that that you can stay up to date with everything we have going on. And so my question to you after a show like that is it's fascinating because there's people out there that are like her that are carrying on the work of Dr. Beljanski, Mirko, I think his first name was. He was originally from Yugoslavia. And I just find it so fascinating and interesting that, Richard Nixon declared the war on cancer, like we mentioned, 1971, $1.7 billion later. Where's all that money going? Where are they doing this research? I was reading something recently that more doctors now are living off of cancer, meaning that the industry itself is allowing for the doctors to live than there are people diagnosed with cancer. 21,000 people a day globally, worldwide, are diagnosed. The average cancer patient, I think, is worth about $780,000 if they go through the conventional treatments. And you can see how this is a $200 billion industry, and it is an industry. And I'll share with you a little kind of thing I had with my mom going through some recent breast cancer cells. So this is just so interesting, and many of you may have heard this before, but there's a lot of new listeners all the time. So my mom's original cancer diagnosis came in 1995. It was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she was given less than a 10% chance of survival. So I won't tell you the whole story, but she went to the City of Hope in Duarte, California, and overcame it. So I should be championing the medical industry, but I just knew there had to be a better way, right? So anyway, as a result of that, secondary cancers often arise as a result of the radiation and chemotherapy, right? So they found a spot on one of her breasts, and they wanted to do all of this chemotherapy and radiation. And my mom wanted me to go to the oncologist meeting where he was going to put on a sales pitch to try to get my mom to do the chemotherapy and radiation. Okay, so we're sitting in the office, and I'm just biting my tongue. I'm trying not to say anything. And the whole thing, from walking into the building, the blue light everywhere, I could feel the radiation. I mean, this is not a place of healing, right? Sitting in the waiting room and people looking at this blue lit TV screen, which causes mitochondrial damage and genetic replication damage and cellular damage and DNA damage, all of this stuff. And being in there and then walking to the room, waiting for the oncologist, the man in the white coat who's going to tell us, going to give us the treatment, right? And so he walks in, and I could tell he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's I could just tell he's really into what he's doing, and he's been, thoroughly indoctrinated by the medical industry. And so at some point during the thing, he leans over to my mom and says, "All right, this is how we're going to cure your cancer." And I just thought, what? Cure? Gosh, it must be nice to be able to use those words, right? To be able to use those words without any repercussion or recourse. So as long as you follow the standard of care, you can do that, right? So he goes on and on about this is how we're going to cure your cancer and blah, 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 not realizing there's studies out of Australia showing a 2.3% success rate with cancer. And so it was like a stage. What was the cancer? I think it was like a stage. I love how they put it in stages, right? It was a stage 1, I think it was, or something like that. And they wanted to do all this aggressive chemotherapy, right? And what I found interesting about, specifically with breast cancer, and I was telling my mom this a while ago with regards to mammographies and mammograms and versus thermography. And so there's a doctor on our show, a good friend of ours, Dr. Stephen Hines out of St. Angelo, Texas. And his website is called hopewellness.com. And his center that operates in Mexico is called the hopewellnesscenter.com, because God forbid he actually have two places in the same country, but because of the way our the American Medical Association and the FDA work is that you have to actually do these treatments in some other country, right? So in any event, what he was saying about breast cancer was that he has a lot of medical doctor friends, and he asked them, he said, this is Dr. Stephen Hines, and he asked them, he said, do you test or assay the cancer biopsy? Do you assay that for fungus? Because there's one of two tests that they can typically do when it comes to, I'm not sure all cancers, but namely breast cancer that he was talking about. And the medical doctors just kind of looked at him and said, why would we do that, And he said, I don't know, just a hunch. And they said, no, we've never once assayed a tumor biopsy of breast cancer for fungus. And then what happened was he was starting to treat the breast cancer patients at his clinic in Texas. I'm sorry, not in Texas, but in Mexico, St. Angelo, Texas. I forget what the city is in Mexico, but on high-dose antifungal IV therapies. And he was finding like a 60% response rate with breast cancer to high-dose antifungals in IV therapy. So that led him to believe that 60% of the people who thought they had breast cancer just had a toxic mold buildup in their breast, and it wasn't even cancer at all. Or cancer is a mold, cancer is a fungus, or at least breast cancer, or at least these women who were responding, their cancers were this way. And so he was saying like 60% of the people that I treat respond to this high-dose antifungal, yet the oncologist, the medical industry, is not testing for this. And the answer is obvious, right? Because there's no money in a treatment of high-dose IV therapy that's antifungal. There's no money in that. There's potentially $700,000 of profit from chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery if someone goes through those treatments. So it's just obviously it's a profit-driven industry. And the sad and unfortunate thing is that when people go to their medical doctor, they think that their medical doctor is somehow, what's the right word? They think their medical doctor is somehow open-minded or doesn't have a skin in the game in some sense, because they think their medical doctor is just going to be open-minded and just tell them what their best option are. That's why all the commercials say, just ask your doctor. It's designed to sell products, but it's trying to get you to ask your doctor, to open up a dialogue, as if your doctor is ever going to tell you that chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery or pharmaceutical drugs aren't going to be the answer. They have to. They have to propagate what they're doing and selling. And so, and so this is kind of the rub of what Sylvie was saying on the show is that if you take these peer-reviewed studies that they have showing that these natural compounds are working with chemotherapy and with radiation to your doctor is going to be really afraid. Listen to the show that we did with Dr. Stuart Fishbein. And he's our medical doctor. He's got he's a medical doctor, but he's the only medical doctor that's legally able to deliver twins in the state of California. So he talked about what they actually do. He was in studio, and it was a really good show, but he talked about what they do to really make a medical doctor's life a living hell and make it almost impossible for him to practice medicine. If they start to do things that are not part of the standard of care. And so it's really sad and unfortunate the way our whole system is designed to not just keep you locked in, but to keep the doctors themselves fearful and afraid from not just doing research, but actually providing some other options for patients. Because the more a doctor does that and empowers a patient that their bodies can heal, the more they start to get looked at. And the more difficult it becomes for them to do anything in their field. And so sadly, it's just the way our system works. So the only way really to supersede all of this stuff is to avoid going to a doctor at all costs. Like, just do your best to take care of your health to the extent that you could live a long, healthy, disease-free life into your 90s, to your 100s and 110, 20 and beyond. Without ever going to a doctor, without ever being on medication. I remember years ago when I was 22, 23, going to a doctor for something, and the nurse that came in asked me if I was on any medication. I said no, and she was just flabbergasted. Like, really? Nothing? Not even XYZ? And I said no. And that's kind of a sad state, right? I'm 23 years old. Why should I be on medication? Why should my DNA be so weak that I need pharmaceutical medications to prop me up? If that's the state of our genetics, we're in a really bad spot. Because if our genetics is so weak that we need pharmaceutical drugs to prop us up and continue our life, then we're clearly doing something wrong. And it's evident in the disease process. Because you look at the rates of heart disease, of Alzheimer's, of cancer, these things, it's like 80%. You're going to be taken out with one of these things if you live to 85 or beyond. So we're clearly disconnected from the way we should be living. And so I hope this show opened your eyes to some new ideas and to some things that maybe you've never heard before. And I realized that she had a really thick French accent. So maybe next time we could have somebody else on to, give another perspective. But the idea here is just to present information, to give someone like her a platform that, we're not going to hear on mainstream news. We're not going to hear any of what she has to say on the news at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. It's just not going to happen. And so that's why it's really important to support podcasts, that allow people like her to have a platform. And so if you know of anybody that has some extra cells, you may want to pass this on to them, because I think one of the best things that you could do is give someone like that an option. And people that are I know this full well because I've known so many people that have gone through cancer. One of my friends from high school, she passed away from colon cancer, and she was 36 years old. And, at the time I spoke with her, and she knew that I was into natural remedies and things. And she said to me, I'll never forget, I spoke with her on the phone, and she said to me, I can't do any of the things that you're talking about because my dad would kill me if I didn't do chemo. And I was like, what? My dad would kill me if I didn't do chemo. And that's the state of affair. They have us locked into a system of fear. And they're trying their best to sell us the idea that their remedy is the only remedy that works. And so this is why it's really important for me to give people like this a stage, because it's another tool in the tool belt of things that you can look at that you can use along with chemotherapy and radiation, right? So if you're fearful, and I get the fear, I totally understand it, but this could work alongside of chemotherapy and radiation. So this is why we do what we do. Hopefully someone will listen to this and be encouraged, to some degree, and able to take some other options. 360 Space Monkey says, I liked her accent. That's cool. Yeah, I liked her accent too. It was just a little bit difficult to hear some of her pronunciations, so this is why I just say, hey, if you can't understand it all, that's totally cool, and I get that. This is why I just go visit her website. This is the website that I wanted to share with you that was connected to the Beljanski Institute. And to be honest, I didn't quite understand her reaction to my question about separating industry and separating research from products. But it's not her website. The other websites connected that I think make the formulations based on Mirko Beljanski's protocols are natural-source.com. And if you're looking to learn more, just contact these folks. Contact them at beljanski.org, and you can look further into some of the products here at natural-source.com. There's no financial interest here at all. You can just search around, and we don't earn anything from them. Just kind of want to give this to you as an option, something to think about and research. But it's just sad. It's sad that we can't even speak, I don't understand. I mean, I do understand, but man, they're really coming down on people that are doing natural treatments for cancer. They're really coming down on people like us, and, putting information out there. And so, as long as we have the platform, we're going to continue to let you guys know about what's going on out there as a possible option. So, all of that to say, I hope you enjoyed the show. That was episode 642. And if you want to grab the show notes, we'll put links to their websites and all that good stuff, along with all the products and the Extreme Health Academy if you guys want to go further. All of that stuff will be available at extremehealthradio.com/642. And you guys can, kind of peruse to your heart's desire. Shill and Killary says, I learn something new every time I come here. I love you searching far and wide for these perspectives, Justin. Well, thank you. Pirate Pete says, please link her website. I'm going to show that comment. I don't know why that didn't go through. Yeah, we'll put links to everything at extremehealthradio.com/642. Brandy, great to see you here in the chat room. There's also a product being brought on the website for dog meds. Cancer patients are using it. And there's a big Facebook page that is called what is this called? Fenbendazole? Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but yeah. Yeah, Julia, Chris, Pirate Pete, Rhea, you guys are awesome. Thanks for joining us today in the chat room on YouTube. I really appreciate it. Midnight Gardener, I love your comment. The powers that be don't want us to hear it. It's true. It's true. It's really, really sad. All they want us to do is be sick and be fearful. That's the goal of of what they have. They want to make you sick, tired, fearful, in debt. And when someone's empowered, when they're healthy, when they're not fearful, and when they're not in debt, you guys can take control of your own biology and prevent a lot of these things. It even says on the cancer CDC that 42% of cancer is preventable. I was just reading that this morning before the show, 42%. So, but they don't want you to know that, right? So that's that, right? All right, my friends. Well, I thank you so much. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. Thank you again for joining us. Rocco and the Big. You guys are awesome. Julia, awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Rebecca Beck from the Extreme Health Academy forums. Thanks for being here as well. You guys are amazing. So really, really appreciate you guys being here, sharing it with your friends. Please pass it on to your friends as well, if you would. That would be really great, especially on Instagram or anywhere like that. So I really appreciate you being here, sharing our shows. We're going to put together a little thing on Black Friday if you want to support our work that we do. So if you want to go to biocharge.me, and we'll put links there for Black Friday if you guys want to join and support the work that we do. Even if there isn't necessarily a Black Friday image or product on there, just go to biocharge.me and click over. And if you make any purchases through there, like the Sauna, the Bellicon, the BARF World, or the Qigong, or any of the other products, you'll be supporting the work that we do. So you guys are awesome. So thank you again for sharing our show and for supporting our work. It really means a lot to us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, my friends, we'll be back on Friday at 10:45. I hope you enjoyed the show. Pass it on to your friends, and we'll see you Friday at 10:45 Pacific with another show. And love you all. Have a great week, and talk to you Friday.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or